Imagine this. You're standing in a crowded hospital room. The fluorescent lights hum. The air is thick with the sharp scent of antiseptic. A mother clutches her child's hand, her face streaked with silent tears. The child, too young to grasp what's coming, looks up with pleading eyes. And in that instant, something inside you breaks. You feel her sorrow as if it were your own. Her helplessness weighs on your chest. You want to help, but you can't. The doctors have done all they can. Disease has no mercy. Still, you can't look away. Her grief becomes yours. You carry it home. It settles in your body like a parasite. You weren't the one who lost a child, and yet you're the one falling apart. This is the side of empathy no one warns you about. The side that erodes you from the inside out. How can something so virtuous feel like a curse? We're taught that empathy is a moral ideal, a bond between souls, a mark of goodness. But what if the very thing meant to connect us is also what dismantles us? If you absorb everyone's suffering, where does it go? If you drown in another's emotions, who pulls you back? Empathy doesn't always lead to compassion. Sometimes it leads to collapse. Picture the friend who breaks under the weight of your pain. The therapist who begins to mirror the trauma they treat. The activist consumed by outrage, lost in the very injustice they fight against. When there's no boundary, empathy doesn't just hurt, it distorts. Neurologically, emotional suffering mimics physical pain. When we empathize deeply, we don't simply understand others, we embody their suffering. Our nervous system reacts as though the pain is ours. Now imagine doing that daily. The tragedies we scroll past, the stories we can't unsee. It all stacks up. Eventually we short-circuit. Empathy turns into paralysis. The connection becomes isolation. And worse, what if empathy can be used against us? What if it doesn't just make us suffer, but makes us pliable? Empathy, in its rawest form, can be manipulated. A cult leader uses compassion to trap his followers. A narcissist thrives on the guilt of the empathetic, spinning sob stories to keep control. Empathy, when exploited, becomes a leash. So why does no one talk about this? Because those who suffer the most are often the easiest to control. In a society that praises self-sacrifice, those who feel deeply are told to give more. Give more time, more energy, more of themselves. Work yourself until exhaustion. Then, society thinks you are a good person for giving it all. Give until you're empty. You are so selfless. Feel everything even if it kills you. That's what kindness looks like. Carl Jung said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Every virtue casts a shadow." Empathy's shadow is self-erasure. When we don't acknowledge that shadow, empathy mutates. It becomes martyrdom, breeds resentment, codependency, and burnout. Nietzsche warned of a society where suffering becomes moral currency, where the victim holds more power than the strong, where guilt dictates behavior and reason is drowned out by feeling. In such a world, empathy isn't a virtue, it's a trap. The truth is this: the world's pain is not your responsibility. Carrying it doesn't fix it, it only breaks you. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that suffering is unavoidable. Empathy, he said, is noble, but dangerous. Because when you feel the pain of the world, you don't ease it, you multiply it. A drowning person can't save another drowning person. And yet we keep telling ourselves that the more we feel, the more we help. But there is a point where feeling becomes blindness. Unchecked empathy leads to emotional exhaustion. You lose yourself, your needs disappear, your identity dissolves. You live not for yourself, but in constant response to others. You begin to vanish, not visibly, but psychologically. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's backed by science. Deep emotional empathy can rewire the brain. The empath starts putting everyone else first. Their own desires are buried under the weight of someone else's crisis. Eventually, they stop making choices based on their own values. They start living on emotional autopilot. When that happens, they're no longer living. They are surviving on behalf of others. The more you suffer for someone, the less capable you are of helping them. It's called empathic distress. The feeling becomes so overwhelming, it shuts down action. You're no longer useful. That is why therapists train to maintain emotional boundaries. Not because they're cold, but because if they absorbed every ounce of their client's pain, they'd break. Yet society tells us otherwise. Feel more, care more, give more, and never, ever pull away. But now you know better, because if empathy can be used to control you, then it already has. Think of who benefits when you are too emotionally drained to resist. The leader who manipulates your emotions to suppress dissent? The friend who weaponizes their pain to cross your boundaries? The systems that run on guilt, obedience, and emotional manipulation. Guilt is a wide open door. Those who recognize that door will walk right through it and take from you as much as you are willing to give. And when emotions overrule thought, you become blind to truth. People can be manipulated into defending the indefensible, all in the name of empathy. History proves this. Tyranny often arrives cloaked in compassion. When empathy is weaponized, it serves the manipulator, not the truth. Now, step back. You're carrying pain that doesn't belong to you. Your identity is blurred. You're emotionally paralyzed. Your ability to think clearly has dimmed. You never even saw it happening because you were told that empathy was good. To question it was to be unkind. But now you see. The question becomes, how do you take back control? The answer is not to reject empathy. It's to reclaim it. You can't save everyone. That was never your role. Absorbing another's pain doesn't heal them. It only adds another casualty. You don't lift someone up by sinking with them. Your power lies not in suffering, but in staying strong while others suffer. That's what real support looks like. Detachment isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Empathy must be a choice, not a compulsion. It's not a guilt trip. Not an open door for everyone who wants a piece of you. Ask yourself, who truly needs my care? Who is using it against me? Where does my energy create real change? Where does it only feed the cycle? Sometimes the most compassionate act is refusal. Sometimes strength looks like saying, this is not mine to carry. Your emotions are sacred. They belong to you. Not everyone deserves access to them. The strongest people don't just feel, they think, they observe, they choose. Protect your mind, protect your energy. Not out of apathy, but out of wisdom. Now ask yourself, without the burden of others' pain, who are you? What do you want? What makes you feel alive? Not in service to others, but in service to yourself. Because if your empathy has erased your sense of self, it was never empathy. It was self-abandonment. True compassion doesn't demand your disappearance. It enhances your presence. The moment you reclaim your autonomy, you begin to feel something you forgot you could feel: peace. And here's what no one tells you. Sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. No, I will not carry this burden. No, I will not let guilt guide me. No, I will not give until I disappear. You were not born to be consumed. Your empathy is no longer a chain, is no longer a weapon in someone else's hands. Now, it belongs to you. And in a world that feeds on the sensitive, choosing yourself is the ultimate rebellion. You've seen the darkness, you've walked through it, you've felt its weight. And now, you know how to rise. But before you do, there's one last truth you must understand. Empathy was never really about others. It was about you, because it made you feel responsible. And responsibility gave you meaning. It gave you identity. That is why it's so hard to let go. But you don't need suffering to matter. You don't need guilt to be good. You don't need to disappear to be compassionate. You can care, you can love. But now, you do it on your terms. You're not drowning anymore. You're rising. No one can use your empathy against you now. Because now, you're free. So the final question is simple. Now that you know the truth, what will you do with it? Has your empathy ever been used against you? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe to our channel at Philosophentric.